Hello, I'm the real life fake wizard. Movies are so back, baby. You see Project Hail Mary, the Super Mario Galaxy movie? They made so much money, Hollywood is back on top. The first quarter of 2026 was the strongest opening quarter the domestic box office has posted since before the pandemic. Total grosses reached $1.77 billion. 2025's Avatar Fire and Ash continued earning well into March 2026. Industry analysts, trade publications, and a chorus of commentators have all responded with the same declaration that cinema is back. No, it's not. All that surface level recovery is obscuring the structural decay and rot beneath the surface. If we look at the lineup of films slated for the rest of 2026, all the properties just announced at CinemaCon this past April, the leadership choices being made at the largest studios, and the continued collapse of the streaming industry, it all points in the same direction. Q1 of 2026 is a kind of walking ghost phase for Hollywood. You know, the interval of time in radiation sickness where a patient appears to recover before their bone marrow fails. That's where Hollywood is at right now. And unfortunately, everyone seems to have the wrong idea about what's on the horizon. Okay, to kick this off, let's look at some of the statistics here. Of the $1.77 billion generated in Q1 of 2026, roughly $528 million came from holdover revenue, meaning films that opened in 2025 and continued earning in theaters through the new year. We're talking about January through March here, and a meaningful portion of the money generated was from films that were released in October, November, and December. Specifically, Avatar Fire and Ash alone contributed nearly $150 million of that total. Now, if we set aside that holdover revenue, new releases from 2026 so far have generated approximately $1.24 billion. But this number is carried by a small handful of films that were extremely successful. There have been nearly 30 feature films released in theaters at the time of recording this. Project Hail Mary drove most of the upside, with some meaningful contributions from Scream 7. The majority of other wide releases underperformed or just barely broke even. So right there, cinema is back. No, you had 2 or 3 movies that made bank, and the rest were flops or not worth mentioning at all. Even assuming the momentum of quarter 1 continues, 2026 is currently projected to finish at approximately $9 billion domestically. The pre-pandemic benchmark was $11 billion in 2019. We're not back, and Hollywood is gonna learn the wrong lesson if they think we are back. Regardless, it would be a short-lived lesson anyway. A closer look at the individual films on the 2026 calendar reveals how structurally constrained the upside has become. Toy Story 5 will almost certainly turn a profit, but the comparative benchmark is Toy Story 4's $1.07 billion worldwide gross, which the current entry will have a hard time reaching. The Mandalorian and Grogu is currently tracking for a domestic opening of $71 to $85 million, a figure that would fall below the inflation-adjusted opening of Solo: A Star Wars Story, the film whose failure prompted Lucasfilm's last strategic reassessment. Masters of the Universe, which is produced on approximately a $200 million budget for MGM, is attempting to launch a property with no recent cultural foothold. In fact, the most recent He-Man property upset lots of legacy fans. And this iteration has actors involved with constantly using culturally charged dog whistle jargon. That's not helping anyone. Masters of the Universe is going to have a massive break-even point to reach because they are pulling out all the stops with marketing for this movie. This is going to be approximately $400 million when it's all said and done. The break-even's gonna be massive. The live-action Moana remake arrives only 18 months after Moana 2 drew down the available market for Moana-related theatrical content. This new movie will likely finish in the $600 to $700 million range against expectations shaped by its billion-dollar predecessor. Godzilla Minus Zero offers the most instructive case of all of them. The 2023 predecessor, Godzilla Minus One, was produced for approximately $10 million, and it grossed $116 million worldwide. It won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects and was widely considered one of the finest entries in the franchise's 70-year history. It is actually one of the best movies in the last decade, and yet, for our discussion here, quality and commercial scale have become substantially decoupled, meaning an excellent film made for reasonable cost can turn a significant profit without approaching the audience size the broader studio infrastructure requires to sustain itself. Godzilla Minus Zero could be incredible. It could cost even $20 million for them to produce it, and it could be an absolutely profitable success. And yet, there is a strong possibility a lot of normie folks just don't go see it, and it doesn't generate nearly the amount of revenue that it should. If the question is where the industry believes it is heading, CinemaCon 2026 offered the most direct possible answer. Over the course of a week in Las Vegas, the major studios presented their theatrical slates for 2026 and 2027. The presentations featured movies coming from pre-existing material, all with established audiences. Everything on the horizon is a sequel, reboot, remake, prequel, and/or spin-off. And of course, this isn't accidental. Just a few weeks ago, we got Disney's CEO saying during his first shareholders conference as CEO that Disney's focus is to create new IP inside of old IP. Those were his words, meaning it's going to be more of the same inside more of the same. Amazon MGM's head of film stated explicitly during the studio's presentation at CinemaCon that the strategy was to lean into what she described as both beloved IP and filmmaker-driven storytelling, language that signals an attempt to thread a needle between risk aversion and creative ambition. I'd like to remind you that for this conversation, we are speaking about the entertainment industry from the lens of growth potential and through revenue generated. When everything being made is the same extension of franchises that have been active for decades, then there are no new on-ramps for new viewers. For instance, a teenager or a kid today from Gen Alpha, well, they're arriving into the Avengers franchise in 2026 and being asked to engage with a story whose accumulated context now spans more than 30 films and a dozen streaming series. The same is increasingly true of Star Wars, the DCU. Top Gun is getting a third film. Ice Age is getting its 7th film. Meet the Fockers is getting another movie. Jumanji is on its 4th movie. Insidious is on its 6th movie. The price of admission in time and attention has become prohibitive for anyone not already inside the tent for most franchises. This actually matters quite a bit because Gen Alpha is the cohort that will determine the theatrical economics of the next 20 years and is the audience the industry needs most urgently to reach, and is also the audience the current strategy is least equipped to attract. New franchises are how new generations are recruited into the habit of movie going and going to the theater every week. The decision to stop building them is functionally a decision to stop replacing the audience that ages out. Further, CinemaCon was where they premiered the first Avengers Doomsday trailer, and the general public is sure to see that trailer at some point very soon. Many people are speculating that Doomsday, ironically named, will be a massive injection of hopium into the Hollywood industry. It would be, if Doomsday succeeds, then Hollywood is for sure back in business. Actually, I'd challenge that. Avengers Doomsday illustrates the financial endpoint of their flawed strategy with kind of an unusual precision. This film carries a reported production budget of approximately $400 million and a marketing budget of approximately $300 million, which would make the total investment somewhere in the range of $700 million to $1 billion. And the most expensive single film ever produced. At this price point, Doomsday will need to clear around $1.5 billion worldwide simply to break even. Comparatively, Endgame cleared $2.7 billion. Infinity War cleared $2 billion. The Doomsday math assumes the film performs in roughly the same range, which is a substantial assumption given the 7 years of franchise erosion since Endgame, and given the specific narrative content the leaked plots have described. Reports indicate that Doomsday's plot consists more or less of watching Doom slaughter everyone, from Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man to the Fox X-Men to all of the Avengers. Nearly everyone is allegedly going to get brutally killed off. Whether or not these specific leaks prove accurate, the film is positioned as a downbeat character eliminating bridge to Secret Wars, which isn't going to resolve everything. These films are not going to have happy, heroic endings where all the heroes go back home. If you actually pay attention to the interviews from the X-Men actors, specifically Alan Cumming and Patrick Stewart, it's pretty clear they're going to be in Doomsday, get killed off, and never come back. Like they're done with playing superheroes for good. So with that in mind, consider Endgame's $2.7 billion gross was driven by a substantial number of viewers attending 3 or 4 times. Tell me in the comments, how many times did you see Endgame in theaters? Lots of people saw it at least twice. For movies to clear billions of dollars, it's not based on viewers going just once. You need families to go multiple times in order to clear $2 billion. A film that kills off the characters audiences are formerly emotionally invested in. It ends on defeat and explicitly functions as the first half of a 2-part story. Well, that's structurally unsuited to repeat viewings at that scale. If these beloved characters like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man are brought back to be unceremoniously slaughtered, ask yourself this: how many times are normies going to want to come back and see that again? How many times are kids going to be willing to sit through that? We're talking about something that might be considered traumatizing. It's definitely something worth considering. But don't worry, you guys. If big budget Hollywood productions on the silver screen imploded, I wouldn't worry. We've still got streaming, which is actually arguably in a worse condition and decaying faster. The supposed replacement for the theatrical model has failed to produce profitable standalone economics for almost any major player, and the content it is producing is failing with audiences at historic rates. Star Trek Starfleet Academy's triumphant failure is evidence that media culture has reached a new viewership floor. Consider that a Star Trek show, which is a nearly 60-year franchise, has just had its worst ratings in its history, with approximately 400,000 total views for the entire season. It averages out to about 40,000 viewers per episode. Just think of that, right? Like the optics here. Star Trek is getting lapped by YouTubers. My last video is going to clear 40,000 views. Heck, this video is likely to clear 40,000 views. And I'm a dude wearing a Spirit Halloween wizard costume. Star Trek Starfleet Academy cost $100 million per season, $10 million an episode. So it costs hundreds of millions of dollars to make these shows, and truly, not nearly enough people are watching anymore for the investment to be worth it. But that's just one example, though. How about the Darth Maul show on Disney Plus? People keep saying that it's the #1 show on the streaming platform. Well, now we have some numbers. Maul clocked in with 4 million views for 2 episodes in the first 7 days, as per Disney's analytics. Well, that's interesting. Okay, comparatively speaking, and look, I'm aware that Maul is an animated show, so fewer people naturally watch it, but Star Wars The Acolyte got 4.7 million views in the first 24 hours. It got 11.1 million views within 7 days. The Acolyte was canceled immediately after the season ended and was considered a massive failure. Maul is underperforming that. Okay, so let's compare it to another animated show. Let's be fair. Star Wars The Bad Batch was in the top 10 of the Nielsen streaming charts in 2021. It hit number 7 with 2 episodes and 251 minutes watched in its premiere week? Well, if we look at the Luminate charts that just dropped, we'll see that Maul is nowhere to be seen for its premiere week. There are actually 0 Disney Plus shows that make the charts this week. And if we actually look at the content making the top 10, it's not any properties made for boys or men at all. 6 of the 10 on this list are reality TV and hospital dramas. The industry stands at what might be generously described as an inflection point. One available trajectory involves a genuine strategic reorientation towards original storytelling, executed with craft, an investment in writers and directors with distinctive voices, and there needs to be a willingness to accept that audiences are capable of responding to new material when that material is made with conviction. Project Hail Mary demonstrates the viability in this approach. So does the Super Mario Galaxy movie. The takeaway is that when you make movies that audiences want to see, it generates billions of dollars. The other available trajectory involves a continuation of previous patterns, and given the leadership configuration at major studios, the composition of the upcoming movies as per the CinemaCon slate, and the incentive structures driving executive decision-making, the second trajectory is considerably more likely. The walking ghost phase of acute radiation syndrome ends in one of 2 ways. In rare cases, with sufficient medical intervention and an adequate residual stem cell population, the patient might recover. I'm no doctor. This is not medical advice. I'm just a fake wizard who did a little research on the Google machine. But in most cases, the recovery is an illusion and the underlying damage proceeds to its natural conclusion. The film industry is currently in its walking ghost phase right now. What happens next depends on choices being made by a relatively small number of executives at a relatively small number of companies. Nothing in their public communications suggests they understand the stakes of the choices ahead of them. For audiences, the practical implication is straightforward. The economic signal sent by a ticket purchase is the only signal that reaches the decision makers intact. Seeing the films that represent the kind of cinema worth preserving and declining to see the ones that do not communicates more clearly than any possible discourse. Executives are not interested in what you have to say on Twitter. Neither are the actors or really anyone else involved. They only listen to you when you close your wallet, and at that point, it's practically a responsibility of you to do so. Until the entertainment industry decides to go full bore and start making media for general audiences again, the decline is going to continue. Hollywood is not back, but things are getting interesting for all of us. Until next time, create, innovate, inspire, and for the love of God, cancel Disney Plus.